Alright, so I guess it's that time. Again, I started with putting stuff away in the garage. And stuff that kind of grows in the corners, you know what I mean? So I figure I gotta take that wheel apart and see what's going on the inside of it. And then I go put the forks over here and then look at the forks and try to figure out how one is going to get attached to the other and how they line up and widths and all that kind of stuff. So I have a feeling that a bunch of lathe time is in my future. But we'll deal with that when we get to it. Let's get this apart and see what makes it tick. Go from there. Alright, so I got the brake drum off. It's actually in better shape than what I thought. I just, at first it was kind of frozen on. I ended up taking all the linkages off. And once they came off, the somebody popped right out. Actually looked fairly decent. There's a name. That's just going to be a name of a brake shoe though, not of a... Still don't know what I'm dealing with yet. Oh well. Inside the drum looks decent. A little bit of where it's been sitting, but I think it'll clean right up. That's the worst of it right there. That's nothing. Bearing. This bearing turns, the other one turns. Worst case, I could chuck it up in the... I might be able to get it in the lathe and be able to cut that brake surface. And I think now what I should do before I go any further is probably get the axle back in it and get it so it spins and see what it looks like. Who knows as far as how bad it wobbles. You know, I haven't been able to really spin the thing. So let me go find something to put that in and we'll see what we got. Alright, so I check this old antique out. It's an old wheel chewing stand for bicycles. I don't think it's for motorcycles, but it's in there. Spin it. Rim looks pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty steady. So the next thing is, here's the front end. This is the axle that's in it. This is the axle that came out of the other one. You already see our immediate problem. So either I got to make the hole in the wheel bigger, or that axle smaller, or a smaller axle in there, one of the two or three. So I think what we're going to do is take one of the side plates off here, and then I can get this axle out, and then probably just stick that wheel with whatever through it and just see how it looks on the front end in general before I do anything. So let me jump ahead to that. Alright, so we're going to go in for the evening. It won't be the end of this video, but it's the end of it for me tonight. So here's what I got. Here's the two different axles. This is the one that came with the front end. This is the one that came with the wheel. See the diameter of this one is a lot less than the diameter of that one. And I was just like looking over the pieces of what I can do, and I could probably... I could either go with a long axle of this diameter and just put it all together and either re-drill the front end a little higher up, or put bushings in it, or something like that. Or I can open up this guy, change the bearings in the wheel to a larger ID to fit the axle, and I would have to open this guy up, which is the speedometer gear. So I think if I open that up to that axle, I'm trying to think of how much meat would be left. Gotta mic it up. Yeah, there might be. It might be okay. I might be able to open that up to that. And that one has plenty. I don't think that'll be an issue. It's pretty solid piece, yeah. And then change the bearings in the wheel. That would make it fit this axle. But I'm gonna I'm gonna sleep on it and see what I come up with. The wheel looks pretty good on the spacing. It kind of goes with the scale of the wheel is probably an inch, a little under an inch clearance. And I think there's plenty of width for the brake drum and the speedo where they would go on. Brake drum I think sucks in pretty close. Yeah. I would just be worried about clearing the bottom of that fork, but it looks like it's shouldn't be a problem. I might take a ride to my local bike shop and see if they have a wheel that kind of is more suitable to this front end, an old, Sportster front rim or something. And it might be easier all around if I can find something that's compatible with it and its pieces. But if not, I could probably make this work. By the time you buy bearings and everything else, though, you're starting to nickel and dime yourself to death. Cable, the brake cable and assembly, and the speedo cable and assembly. And once I figure out what the wheel is and whether they're going to be long enough, and it goes on and on. So anyway, I'm going to go wrap it up for here. Alright, so I went to my local motorcycle shop, and kind of more of a Harley shop, but we're trying to figure out what this front end is, and it is like late 60s, early 70s Harley setup, not that it's a Harley. And the most of that early like Sportsters and whatnot would have had that 3/4 inch axle that this front end came with, but he was saying that the wheels that would have been on there, the brake drum would have been very small, like 4 or 5 inches in diameter, not 12 or whatever that is. So I said to him, I put a different front end on it, and it seemed front wheel, and it seemed like everything would clear, and it does seem to be. And he said he'll keep an eye out and talk to a couple people, see if he can kind of come up with something. But most of his stuff is newer and doesn't have that kind of setup. So I continued moving forward. I thought about turning this axle down, or this one's too short. This is the one that came with that wheel, but it literally won't make the span with it. So I decided to take apart the front of the bike and see what that front wheel had on it. And it's metric, but I'm going to call it, we'll say it's 5/8 or 9/16. That's what that axle is. This is the axle that's out of that front end. I figure I'd shove it in the wheel and see what it looks like. It actually looks pretty good. What I figure I can do is take this side, which normally gets sandwiched, and turn it down the size of the axle to probably about that far. I could shove the axle in that much more, which would allow those threads to pop out the other side. And that's what I'm kind of contemplating now, unless something else shows up. And I'm going to continue to move forward with looking into how the top of the triple trees matches up to what's on the bike now. So I figure I'll start disassembling. I'll take the handlebars off and all those bits and pieces and see what it looks like when we get down to the actual bearing assembly there, how close or far away that is to fitting the front end on it. So I figure I'd grab the camera for a couple of minutes before I start disassembling and see what we get. So I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I dug that out of the way, kind of stripped it back, and just left everything connected as far as all the gauges and whatnot. Not that there's all that much up there, it's basically just 2 directionals and the headlight. But I want to take a look at what it had for a front end, and at some point this is what was added to it. Let me turn the light on. This is what was added to it, and it's got a big gusset down below. This whole piece, come on camera, turn on the light, there you go. This whole piece right here is a gusset. That's the size. So it's fairly good. I'd say that's probably 6 inches, 5 or 6 inches of material to bridge the neck. I think I would have spent a little more time cleaning it up. It's just like, you know, they left all the old wood frame connected to it. They just kind of hacked it off and welded it on. There's one of my ball bearings right there. And the same on the top. So I don't need any of this. I don't need this number. It's not registered by this number. It's registered by the Wilmac tag. And rightfully so. We shouldn't be whatever Jap bike that was. Which was an 81 Yamaha something. 500? Is that 5? That's a 700. So the bike was a Yamaha, I don't know, Virago? Is that it? Anyway, so I figure we're gonna go see how the front end section of the triple tree, which is this piece down in here, is gonna butt up to what we have going on there. That's the next biggest hurdle, you know, getting the wheel to fit the front and then this to fit the frame. So I'll have a better idea, a better picture all around what will and will not go together and what it's going to take to fix those. So before I start modifying something that I need, like front axle and all from the original wheel, we're going a little bit deeper. So let me get this top section of it off, see if I can slide it up over it and see how much of the thread fits through, if it fits through, any issues with it, that kind of thing. All right, back in a second. One thing that was comical that I forgot to add was I had that front tire. I was taking that front tire off of the original setup, and the bike was sitting up on the lift. I had just had it up in the air, and as soon as I pulled the bolt out of the tire, well, the rest of the bike wanted to go the other direction. It was ready to go do one of these and just flip right up in the air. So a friend of mine was here. He held it while I ran and grabbed the ratchet strap and wrapped it around the lift to hold it. And now I got a couple jack stands in the back, just kind of a little doubly support. But until some weight is back on that front end, no. I would say this one's probably 20 pounds heavier setup than that front end. So that's a good thing. I'm actually trying to add mass to that front, so I won't be skittish with the metal. And something like that. I was just checking out the spacing. Doesn't look too bad. There's no bearings in there right now. There's no race on the bottom of this triple tree. And then the top, you figure it can be whatever the distance the bearings are, plus the half of the bearing retainer that goes up here, and then the nuts. And thinking that it might be a little on the close side of how much I have for threads to work with. All depends on how much of the bottom gets taken up too, you know. But I figure probably worst case scenario, I could probably take this tube, come on, turn on, there you go. This bottom tube, which is trying to think if there's no race or anything in there now, so what's the difference? Not like I end up tapping. I don't know, I gotta look on the bottom side, but maybe I can cut this back and allow me to choke up on a little bit more and give me a little bit more room if I need it, because it probably came nice and long and then they cut it off. You could see it, you know, for whatever bike they built it for. And the only other issue I see right now is when you turn it this direction, it runs into the brake lever right there. But I figure I could probably just grind that back. Worst case scenario is I could actually take it and shorten up the conrod on the pedal, and that'll swing the pedal more down. But I think I can cut enough of that away. I gotta make stops on it too. Don't allow it to go so far. So I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I may just try sticking a bunch of pieces back on it and kind of like setting it on the ground and getting a rough idea how it's gonna look overall. See if I see any more red flags to look for. So I'm gonna go attempt that now, and then I'll turn you back on and we'll take another look at it. All right, it's definitely haphazardly kind of put on there, but I just wanted to get a picture of what it looked like in my mind. how it's going to lay out. It's actually a little lower than what it would be. That front end will probably be up if you put the rocker. That rocker should be pointing almost straight forward. So another 3 inches in altitude, and probably give it almost the same stance it had before, I think. But I think it appears to look longer because of what it's made out of. And there's no front fender on it right now. So I'm happy with how the aesthetics would move forward with that. My issues I have right now is my biggest problem is between here and here. The center distance that's between the upper and lower part of the triple tree are not the same width. So unless I'm able to cut down what's inside here so that it becomes skinnier, I think it might get quite involved. The only other possibility is I could change the distance of the center, I don't even call it a stud, the I don't know. Anyway, the that piece is removable. So worst case, I could probably lengthen that so that it's the same as this. But I'm going to get this front end back off again. We'll take a good look and we'll see what's in there for a top and a bottom race. Maybe tap them out and see if it's consistent going all the way down. So I'll get on that. All right, so I knocked it down to pretty much bare bones. This is what needs to fit on that, you know. So these, I took the races and I stacked them. One part stays on this triple tree and the other part gets tapped up into the race that's on the upper and lower section of that. So the bottom two, yes, we're gonna figure the bottom two would fit right up in there. It's about where they would sit, and then you try to figure out where the top would need to sit. So I need the bottom of this race to sit right there, which is roughly where that black line is. And you figure you got to add probably about another 1/8 inch a piece for the bearings that go in between. And then of course it's bolted on top. So this is the fixed dimension of this piece of this part. So I need to make the neck that same length. And the only way I can kind of think of to do it would be I would have to cut it down to that line. And the race, the bottom of the race, let me take it apart. Bottom of the race actually sits flat on that tube, and then you got to put a collar around it to hold it. So, not that guy, but it's actually going to be this one. Okay. So this race, right now, it fits up into that collar with a tap fit. I need to make that sit right there, or maybe even a little bit lower. So I have to cut that and get it as square to the tube as I can, because you can remember it's a bearing, so all the crap that's rolling around on it, you don't want to just touch to one spot. You kind of want that weight even. And if you're off on an angle a little bit, that's not going to happen. So that's the first challenge, is trying to get that a nice square cut. You know, it's on a bike. It's not like I could chalk it on a lathe and just zip some of it off. So that's the first part of it. And then I have to encapsulate this somehow from going from side to side. One part would be see if I can cut this off and use this ring over again. But I think by the time you, I don't know if that's welded or how that was put on there originally. But I think by the time you get rid of that shoulder, light pop on, there you go. By the time you get rid of that, you know, that shoulder, how much material will I have to set back over the piece of pipe and re-weld it back on? So that's where I am. I also said, well, what about just making my own? So that's a little sloppy. I could always slice off, you know, whatever, 3/8 of an inch of this, and then put a slice down the center of it, and I can actually probably just close it up a little bit until it gets tight on that, and then weld it on. So I can make my own if I have to. But once I do this, there's no going back to putting another front end on, because now it's not going to be the same dimension for the original front end. So that's why I was kind of holding off on this. Like, you know, what do I want to do and what am I going to find that does or doesn't fit. And this is kind of what I suspected. Other things that I'll have to make, which I'm not totally against, I'm not, you know, that's part of trying to make something like this, is that space there. I need to make a bushing to take up that slot because that has to be dead nut center and no play in it. The other half of it, this goes back up in there, so that's fine. You don't have to worry about this diameter at all. And then again on the top, you'll have this one, and this one has some play in it, and you have to, we'll have to get rid of that also. So we'll need another bushing or whatnot, or build it up with weld and then take it down on the lathe, or I don't know. But that still needs to be built. But I would say the first part is trying to get the triple tree to get the main bearing fitting first, and then kind of go from there. So pretty much thinking on going for it. And you know, what else am I going to do? Sit here and look at it. And then it'll also get rid of some of this crappy area that you see here. You know, they never bothered kind of filling this in with weld. I do know that the fiberglass piece does come down here, so they may have been trying to leave it open because of that. But if I slice that back, that'll get me right to the top of the frame, and so from there to there is all, you know, meat. You're not really losing anything. I'm not losing any strength really on this. So, all right, I'm done babbling. I'm gonna figure out how to try to get the best square cut on that I can, and go from there. Alright, so I figured what I would do is I would start with the bushings that need to go on here. Get rid of that slot that I just showed you. Yeah, that. So, I found a piece of stock of brass that was fairly close. It's a little bit larger than the idea of this. So I'm going to knock down the outside edge. First I cut it off. It's like a 4-foot piece. So I cut off about a 2.5–3 inch block of it. And I figure I'll take down the outside edge to match that, and then I gotta hollow out the inside of it to match whatever the diameter of this is. So I figure I get that done and slice that off, and kind of go from there. Make the pieces I need before I slice down the front end. So I'm gonna get on that right now. My view. I'm going to keep working at that, and we'll keep whittling that down until we have our shim or our spacer. So I went a little too far on it, and I had to take it out and spin it over and redo the other side, and I just kept approaching it very slowly, and now it's tapped right on. It's a nice snug fit on that, so now I just got to make the inside hole. That's the diameter of this, and that'll get rid of that play. So I'm going to switch over to drill bits, probably run a drill bit through it, keep opening it up, and eventually have to get to the, I forgot the name of it. I'll show you in a minute. And that's one down. So there's now the correct size. Now I got to do make the upper one and do the same with that. Alright, so that's the one at the bottom with its ring that's got to get its race, and then there's the top one all done with its one, so that can go in the top, and this one can go back into the front stem. So now it's that make or break point where I got to slice that puppy down for that to go in there. So I think I'm just going to go for it. I think I'm just going to cut all this stuff out of my way, this piece, get rid of that, And then I'm not sure how to try to make a straight line all the way around that and cut it. I may just kind of wing it, and then once I get all the top pretty much out of the way, then I may take a just a square, keep going over the top, and just keep kind of fine-tuning it till I get it. I don't really know of a better way to try to go about doing that, so here it goes. Alright, so no turning back now. I've been cutting. I pretty much squared up some tape off the top lip, and I used that to space it down to get a straight line going around down lower. Hit it with a magic marker and just took a cutting wheel and cut that right out of there. So that's how much shorter I'm making it. Probably just shy of an inch, it looks like. So now, where'd it go? Here it is. So now this has to get encapsulated up here. This is going to be my upper race locating. So I have to build a shoulder around this so it holds it steady. Now this is the same size as that. My first thought was, this is the ring I cut off the bottom. Could I use that? But it's not. It's a little larger. Then I looked at the one that I just cut off, and I said, well, maybe I could slice that off and stick it back on there and weld there, which I might still do. Or just take another piece of pipe that's a little bit larger, cut off, you know, I could have it a little bit beefier. I could probably knock it down to, I don't know, about there, slide that ring over the top, and then weld that to it to get it, and then I can just, like I said before, cut a slice in it to make it the right diameter. So I probably think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this in the bandsaw, see if I can get it cut down for my shimshimily. And unfortunately, my air gun, I'm like, why is my air not turning on? My pressure switch had a meltdown. We're at 85 pounds. You can see the one down below there. That one. It actually burned off the whole point right on there. So I gotta get a new pressure switch. I have a feeling that thing was running and running around all night. I think it failed and then overheated itself. So, shit happens. Alright guys, so this is probably going to be the end of this video. I have a feeling it's getting fairly long. So we'll catch you on the next one. We'll have a part B on this part of it.